Okay, welcome to interview 3 in this case study series. In this one, I'm interviewing a chap called Ben. He's based out of Sydney, and he's a sort of screenwriter and director, or wannabe screenwriter and director, who is about to move from writing short stories or directing short stories, ads and things like that. And he's got these aspirations of moving up to the big ticket and creating feature-length films. He signed up for a sketchnoting course. Yanis initially didn't want to look at those, but in my experience, I wanted to throw it wide because you never know what you're going to find here. And if we only interview a narrow band of people who've signed up to Yanis's course, we might miss a massive opportunity for him in the future. Similarly, we might find, whatever, this is smack banging sketchnoting, it's nothing to do with what Yanis sells. And until we interview people, we just don't know. So listen in. Take some notes as you go along, see if you can fill in the 4 forces of progress. At the end, you'll hear the debrief that I've done, that I've shared with Yanis, and then you'll see back from me when I'll talk a little bit more about what we've learned.
A bit of a backstory here. So I'm trying to do some very, very early stage research, and I'm really interested in the language that people use to describe both realizing that they need to sort of learn something about creating visual ideas, how you go about finding out what courses are available, searching for, and eventually purchasing one, and then your experience on the course. So the good news here is it's your story, it's in your own words. You can't get anything wrong. If you can't remember anything, no worries, just say so, rather that than sort of trying to make it up. The bad news is that where it's about language, I'm going to apologize up front because I'm almost certainly going to interrupt. And it's not because I want to be rude. It's just if you, I don't know, you might use a word or a phrase, and if I don't understand it, I want to dive in and make sure I can explain it in my terms. So sorry for that. And the way I do it sometimes is like a bit of a weird analogy, but imagining I'm shooting a Netflix documentary series of people who've gone on courses like this. This is your episode, so I might sort of ask you some weird questions like, imagine I'm trying to play you, what's going on in the scene, or I'm shooting the scene, who's there with you, or whatever. But hopefully it's not too painful and it jogs the memory a little bit.
Yeah, no worries at all.
Awesome. So Ben, maybe if you could help set the scene to start off with, just give me a bit of a backstory. Who are you? What's going on in your life? Like what's the sort of big picture of the scene in which this story takes place when you end up on this, I think it's a verbal to visual course?
Yeah, so I'm from Sydney. I'm 30 years old, and I work in film and TV, and also music videos and commercials. Okay. So I'm mainly a writer-director across those 3 things, but ultimate sort of like vision is to be solely in films like Endgame. So I started using verbal to visual because a lot of the time I'll be writing and like just taking loads and loads of notes, and usually I'll sketch out stuff with mind maps, which has always worked pretty well for me. But often I'll find when I am writing, I'll get like almost buried in so many notes, and it's just hard to, when you're doing like a big draft of like 90 plus pages, it's just hard to sort of, you just kind of building and building and building, and then there's a moment where you're like, oh fuck, I forgot that, or like it's hard to distill information that you're like, okay, this is the key stuff that needs to change in this draft. Okay. So I basically just wanted some kind of way to still capture all the essence of the notes, but not feel like I was like drowning in like train of thought sort of stuff.
Okay, perfect, thanks. This is really good. So I'll scroll down the key thing so that I can come back to it.
That's right.
30-year-old Sydney, film, TV, music videos, commercials, writer, director. So from what I'm hearing here, a lot of this is related to your work.
Yep.
I'm writing notes and I'm turning those notes into mind maps. And maybe for somebody who's completely ignorant of anything artistic whatsoever, you can treat me like this for the rest of the call. how much of your day is this? How much, like, when are you doing it? Like, what is this sort of process you're going through?
Depending on if I'm on another job, like, sometimes some of my jobs might run for a month or a week. But if I'm solely sort of working on a script, I'll usually start about 8:30, and by the time I get to 1:30 or 2, that's like, I feel mentally that's kind of quite a big chunk. So I'll usually take a break in there as well, but by 1:30 my kind of whole brain is kind of like, well, that was a lot to take in. So anything, usually I'll move on to stuff that's less draining in terms of like creative kind of thought later in the day. So it'll be like, reviewing stuff, or like maybe like have a call with someone about another project, that sort of stuff, or replying to emails. But yeah, the peak kind of I know when I'm most productive, and it's like between 8:30 and 2 roughly.
Okay, fair enough. That makes sense. So, and is this like every day that you sit and you carve out this time to write scripts, or is it certain days of the week?
Yeah, I treat it pretty much as if I'm Monday to Friday, if I'm not booked on like any other jobs. So there might be periods where I just like can't take time to write, which is like shoot days or away on a job. But if I'm at home or I've got an office as well, I'll be like, yeah, that's what I'm doing every day.
So maybe if I sort of play that back in my words, Monday to Friday sort of default mode would be script writing, unless there's something more important to do, like shooting whatever that script happens to be, or delivering something to a client. Is that about right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
The scripts you're writing between 8:30 and 2 p.m., is this like, would I be working on one single script every day for a week or a month, or am I like, is there a different script every day, or am I doing 2 or 3 scripts in a morning? What are we doing?
It's usually the same one, just because that's what I'm kind of gunning towards getting made at the moment. I've made like a bunch of shorts in the past, and like a web series as well, but that's been kind of in collaboration with other, like I have like a writing partner. So this is probably the first script that I'm like is feature length, but also that this is doing myself.
Okay, this is interesting. Sorry. So maybe it sounds like this is specifically happening when you're working on a feature length script that is you and you alone that's writing this script. And has this problem come up when you've been writing the shorts and other things like that before, or is it just something that you've noticed?
Occasionally, but it's kind of I think probably why there's so many notes is that it, like, with a short you could get away with not fleshing stuff out as much, and flying by the seat of your pants, because you really only need you've only got like a certain amount of time. If what you'd put into that is interesting, then you can kind of get away with it. But with something that's 90 minutes, like, there's just no way that you can sustain something good and interesting if you don't have all your structure like down to a T. So because the stakes are so much higher, and whoever's going to read this is going to be a lot more, there's going to be a lot more money at stake, there's going to be a lot more profile. I'm just kind of trying to perfect it as much as I can.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So is this the first time you've done like a feature length piece, or have you done it before?
I've written multiple in the past, but this would be the first one that I'm like really gunning towards being like, okay, I think this could be something that would be made. Yeah.
Okay, so this, and when you say be made, are you like, is this like Hollywood, or is this like a TV program, or what might
It wouldn't be Hollywood. even though like there's a lot of steps to get there. But this would be kind of first feature under $1 million, made in Sydney. Yeah, that's kind of what it would be.
Okay, that's cool. And this is the first time that you've written one that could be made into this. Like, why is that? What's going on that suddenly makes that?
It's just basically how far along you are as a writer or in your sort of creative process. Like I think a lot of the time they'll write something that's 90 pages and think, oh, this is worthy of to be made, but you kind of there's all these little steps in between, and I guess it's up to you as to when you feel like it's ready. And in my opinion, I think this is probably the best idea I've had so far, so that's why I kind of think that.
Okay, cool. Maybe if I'm sort of looking at it from maybe a career I'm more familiar with, you start off as a junior and you do kind of tasks that somebody else gives you, and then eventually am I ready to step up into maybe a managerial type role? And this is I've written these things before. I'm doing it for myself now. I'm stepping up, standing on my own 2 feet, putting this out there. It sounds like where it's a lot of money, there's some sort of, I'm not quite sure how to label it, but is it a fear or anxiety, or is it an excitement and opportunity? Like what is it that's making you sort of more worried about the notes and the depth and the structure on this than you would have done?
Yeah, I guess you could say that. It's more just like I think at my stage and at my age, it's easily the biggest jump from any kind of thing that you've done. So if someone actually says yes and gives you the green light, or whether you get it made by yourself and people go see it, you just want to make sure it's great and it doesn't suck.
Okay.
So I think that's kind of what it is. It's not like I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I've spent all this money, because like at the end of the day, someone's giving you the money. But maybe obviously I think a lot of the time you can get like worried, and it's not going to be amazing because it's the first feature, but you would definitely see people in the past that have done one and then it's just like not that good and they don't really get a chance to do it again. So it's kind of just
Okay.
it's just like do as best job as you can, but also I guess like taking the time to be like, okay, this is like really going to be good.
Okay. So if I'm hearing this right, so it's like I'm putting more effort into this because it's the first one I'm putting out there. I'm trying to get funded, and I'm going to spend what sounds like quite a lot of money to me. Is that quite a lot of money, or is this a token amount in your industry?
$1 million.
Yeah.
That's like really low for a feature budget. So usually like for a first feature, that's kind of standard. You'd have to like cut a few corners.
So it's less about total money. It's that if I'm new, then this is the budget that someone's going to give me. They're never going to give me like $10 or $50 million.
Yeah,
so
yeah, no way. No.
Best thing I can for $1 million. And is that so that they get a return on their investment, or is that so that I get a chance to make the next one worth 5 million, or what is it?
It's just more like risk. So if I'm an investor with loads of money, and even if the script is really good, like if you're giving it to another director, then that's less risk if they've done heaps before. But because I would direct it as well, they're probably like, this it's his first thing. Like, what if he's crazy or he fucks it up? Like, I don't want to spend like all this money.
Okay, awesome. So you've sort of mentioned on this that you've been working quite heavily. So when you're not working on other projects, this is the sort of the default thing to be doing. How long have you been working on it? When did you start on this script?
Probably like 3.5 years ago. But there's been a lot like in between. So I had the idea probably like 3.5 years ago, but actually like building out all the characters and going through all the drafts has probably been about 3.5 years. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so maybe let's dive into verbal to visual.
Yeah.
In your own words, what is it you bought? How would you describe this to maybe somebody, your mum or somebody who didn't know anything about verbal to visual?
I would say it's just way like tricks of how to make notes kind of more engaging, but also go towards things that methods that you wouldn't usually. So I've seen people take notes before, which I saw in this, which I would never do it like that. But some of the tricks that were tricks or methods that he was saying, I was like, oh, that could be a really easy way to distill information. And I would even think about changing how I would take notes in real time. Like one of the examples is I forget what he calls it, but it's like just the standard way to take notes, which is just, like one after the other. And then he had one where you kind of have your key ideas on the left and then all your notes in real time on the right. So that's kind of one thing. I'm not doing that too much these days, but like when I was at uni or school, I could easily imagine that as like a much better method than like sitting in a lecture and just taking pages and pages of notes.
Okay, cool. So basically, you've signed up for tricks on how to make notes more engaging, methods that maybe you didn't say you wouldn't use usually. So is that ones you didn't know, or ones that you did know and you just stopped using?
Probably didn't know, to be honest. I'm not the best drawer, so a lot of the course was like quite big on drawing. And even though I guess he talks about like discomfort and just doing drawings, even if you don't think they're like up to standard. So that was something that I originally was like, I don't think I'll bother with that. But as I've done it more, it's actually been quite helpful.
Okay, so when you signed up, you didn't think you'd bother with the visual, with the drawing?
Yeah.
But as you've gone through the course, that's changed, and you have.
I would say so. Yeah, just to sort of, I would say I'm like fairly visual in terms of picking up something and understanding it. Like the more visual it is, the quicker I would say I understand it.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Right, so if we focus in on verbal visual, I think you mentioned the screen. How much did this cost?
I think it was about 100 or something US. Actually, it was about 6 months ago.
Okay, cool. So about $100 US. Is that a lot of money?
For something like that, I didn't think that was too expensive. I did look at a few others that were kind of varied in price, or some could be a subscription.
Okay.
But I think that was the best. It seemed like the best value for money at the time.
Okay, cool. Thanks. And 6 months ago, so where are we now? End of August, September. So it's March, April, was it?
Yeah.
Okay. Why then?
It's probably just because that was the period where I was like, okay, I'm just taking loads and loads of notes, and reshaping one of the drafts, and I was like, I think I kind of need something or different methods to approach how that process was happening.
Okay. And sorry, you needed something different.
Yeah. So just like I would take mind maps and then address notes, but then it would kind of I'd be in this kind of domino cycle where I'd have one thought and be like, oh, I got to change that, I got to change this, I got to change that, and it just kind of kept going and going. So I was like, I need something where I can basically distill those notes and just have them as like this kind of compact set and execute them.
Okay, that's interesting. What does executing notes mean?
Just basically going through the entire script and it could be like it's basically just anything that you think needs improvement. So yeah, I would only take a note if I think something can get better or needs to be changed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. What is the format of this thing? What if I pay $100 to verbal to visual? What do I get?
You get like there's all these different sorts of videos, but you get like access to the library. I think I paid for a year subscription, and you get access to the library with all these kind of different lessons.
Okay.
Which they have ones available on their YouTube channel for free, but this kind of is one, it guides you through the whole thing.
Okay. So the free ones on YouTube,
yeah,
not as in depth. You said doesn't.
No, and it's just kind of it's not a proper course. Whereas like the one that you pay for is like, okay, this is what we're doing. You know, it's like a online course that is like properly designed to go week to week.
Okay. So is it? Yeah, maybe trying to understand this. YouTube's not a proper course. Is this just like a video or a sequence of videos or something?
I think that's just like sort of like tips and tricks or bits and pieces that they could be part of the course as like, you know, this is a useful thing you can do if you struggle with this, but this is kind of a whole look at what this guy's kind of course verbal to visual is, I guess.
Okay, so maybe putting this down, maybe whatever one of those techniques you were talking about earlier on, you know, drawing sketches, that could appear in a single YouTube video, or it could appear inside a big set of videos in an appropriate place.
Yeah, I think so. And
is this something you're doing like with others, or are you doing this on your own? Like, are you in a class doing it, or?
No, I just did it by myself. I'd probably be open to doing it with others, but I guess in terms of like what was available, I think it seemed best to kind of do it online.
And you said you paid for a 1-year subscription. Is that because it takes a year to go through all the content, or is that just, you know, does it take a day to go through the content? Like how many videos do I get?
There's quite a lot. I probably would have to look to see the exact amount again, but I just kind of thought I can pay for, I think it was like slightly cheaper for the year. So I thought, why don't I just get it for the year and I can go through it in my own time rather than kind of like trying to cram everything into a couple months.
Okay. And have you finished it?
I've probably got about 70% of the way through, and I got kind of quite busy with quite a few jobs, and I think I probably got enough out of it that I wasn't really like rushing to go back and finish the last remaining 30%. I think I'd kind of got enough out of it at that time. Not saying there wouldn't be useful stuff in that last 30%. I think I was just like, okay, I think I've picked up the key kind of ideas that work for me.
Okay, cool. And so if you've got 70% of the way through it, you signed up, let's say April. Did you just ditch the note taking in the morning and sit and study this all day? Like, imagine, you know, this is my Netflix moment shooting your scene. What are you? When are you?
No, this would have been after I've done writing for the day and I'm kind of in the headspace of like learning or adjusting the way I'll do the next day.
Okay.
So I'll do like an hour or something on this, and then at like in the afternoon, say.
Yep.
And then I can apply it to the next day. Because I feel like that 8:30 to 2 p.m. window is like quite sacred to me in terms of the other stuff I'm doing, that I wouldn't just be like, okay, I got to learn these new methods.
And how many days in a row do you think did it take you to get to 70% of it doing an hour a day?
I probably wasn't doing it like every day religiously. It was kind of when fit around my schedule. So it was probably on average, I would say like three times a week.
Okay. And how many weeks did that go on until you sort of got enough out of the course?
It's roughly probably like 18, 20 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay. So 18, 20 weeks. So is that, so you've sort of stopped using it relatively recently then, have you? What's that? Sort of
Yeah, I would say so. That's kind of like, there was a few big jobs that I had in between then. So like maybe I'd take like a week off if I was away shooting or yeah, but on average I would say 18, 20 weeks. So it's actually been, yeah, quite a lot.
And has it worked? Like, have you got what you wanted from it, or is it not helping?
I would say yeah. One of the things, like probably the key thing I took away from it was this idea of discomfort that he talks about, which is like the way that you learn things. It wasn't like it's basically like you learn through discomfort. So you've got to put yourself in like something you don't enjoy doing to get better at it, and then you find this discovery and then recovery. So an example from my own kind of stuff is like I feel very comfortable writing dialogue, but action, which is just like the kind of uh, bits in a script that are like, you know, little Jane does this. Yeah, that kind of stuff. I always really didn't enjoy writing that stuff because I was like, just felt I wasn't very good at it. And dialogue just comes a lot more naturally to me because I can remember it. I can just like pick up how people talk easier and stuff. So I would challenge myself. He was talking about that, and then I would be like, okay, I'm going to write a script that is all action, no dialogue.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, one of the values you've gotten from this isn't learning how to express your notes in a visual fashion. It's that actually I should lean into the things I'm uncomfortable doing because that's how I'm going to learn how to do them better.
Yeah, like the notes are still a thing. Like I've definitely changed the way that I take notes based off that sort of stuff, like drawing and distilling ideas. But that's true. Basically, almost like a mindset kind of thing that I've also learned as well.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, that's great. Okay, so let's go back in time. So March, April 2025, you've taken $100 out of your wallet and given it to somebody else. 3.5 years you've been working on this script. At what point between whatever 3.5 years ago or so, March, April 2022 or whatever it's going to be in 2025, do you first think, hey, like I need to do something about these notes, or what? Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've obviously you've identified a problem at some point, and then about 3 years later you've acted on it by joining this course. When do you first think, oh, I've got to do something about this?
Yeah, that's a good question. Basically, like it's been so many things in between that I've kind of just accumulated all these notes and like showed it to people. And then I think getting feedback from people over that time in tandem with everything else that I'm doing, I kind of just got to this point where I was like, oh, I've got all these notes and like I don't really feel obviously 3.5 years sounds like a long time, but even at my age 30, it's like not it's not really that old to be doing your first one. So it's just like a really long process, writing and making something really good. So I think it was just a combination of getting notes from other people and, showing the script to other people, and then having my own and being like, how am I gonna make this kind of final push? Because I guess I'm on like the final stretch of the writing process.
Okay, that's interesting. How am I going to make the final push? Maybe just because I'm completely ignorant about your industry. 3 years goes by. Like when do I know I need to make the final push? Like you said, 30 years isn't too old to be making your first one. So why do I suddenly get this impetus to give it a drive over the line when previously?
Well, I've sent it to like there's been a lot of drafts, so it's technically been 3.5 years of writing, but there's been like a draft at 1.5 years, a draft at 2 years, a draft at 2.5. So this is kind of the last draft that I'm like, okay, I think this has come a long way and people have shown interest in the draft getting better, but also like, okay, I think you're really starting to get onto something here. Because the first draft is always going to be pretty crap compared to the rest.
Yep.
So
and when you're sending
you
this,
kind of,
are you sending it to the sort of person who's going to take their wallet open and give you $1 million to create it, or are you sending it to other people like yourself who write these things, or?
yeah, no, it's much more like collaborators
Okay.
and fellow kind of peers, because you wouldn't want to send it to anyone who's like a key decision maker unless it's the best it can be and you feel like it's ready.
Okay. So over the past 3 years or so, sending the collaborators, they're sending it back. But now this year, it feels like it's come a long way. People are showing more interest. What if you've managed to do all of that without any of this visual note-taking stuff? Why change what's worked?
Well, I wouldn't say it's like fully worked, because I was at the point before I signed up the course with all these notes of being like, written notes that I had that I felt could still be implemented. So that was one of the things that I was like, I want to combine all those kind of written things that I have to make sure they come into the draft. So I wouldn't say I throughout the whole first draft and second draft that I've just been like, okay, like don't need any of the notes. I've just kind of wanted to get better at intertwining them and making sure they ended up in the actual work, as opposed to.
Okay, yeah, maybe I think hopefully I'm starting to understand. I've got a draft over here. This is the story as it currently is today.
Yeah.
I've got the notes that I'm making about this. Well, maybe it's a new idea. Is it a new character or a new scene or something?
Yeah, it could be.
Okay. And like, what's the problem if it's all written versus if it's visual?
I think sometimes like you can get so buried in the notes and ideas that it's almost like really hard to wrap your head around how you're going to approach the draft and implement all of them. So that was something where if it's 90 pages, you get super buried in the first 30 pages, and then super buried in the next 30 pages, and you've got all these notes that you're not sure if are coming through. So it was more about distilling the notes to a reasonable kind of amount that they would definitely all end up in the draft.
And I guess so there must be some sort of switch that's happened in your head from doing it the old way with all these, the paper notes. When do you first think visual notes would be a better idea? Like, how does that idea come about?
I've always done mind maps. So that was kind of a visual note taking technique I did from sort of high school. The first time I would have considered it probably as like a bigger concept than just the one I already knew, probably would have been towards the end of last year.
Okay.
When I was just kind of looking at how much material written down notes I had, and I was thinking I've got to find a way to distill this.
Okay. So this is the sort of first thought, really. I'm going to give it a fine push, but I've got to find a way to distill this.
Yep.
And at that time, or shortly afterwards, what was the idea? Like, so I've got to find a way to distill this. How does that go to then starting to either be aware of courses, or like what were all the things that you considered to get hold of it?
Well, I went through everything one by one, which was pretty painful. And then the next step was kind of just thinking like, okay, I can highlight stuff. I could write everything down again, but then you kind of feel like you're trapped in this kind of hamster wheel because you're just doing the same thing. So I landed on finding a new method, mainly because I just wanted to get a really good grip on everything through this kind of new way, as opposed to adding to everything.
Okay, so if I'm hearing you right, I've got to find a way to get a grip on all this stuff. Yeah, I've go through everything one by one. This is really painful. I could go back and highlight it or do something else, but that feels like I'm just doing the same thing again. So therefore,
exactly.
A method. What new methods did you like? Obviously, at some point you've paid for this course. How do you find out about it? Like, what were the choice set of things that you considered, the different methods that you could have used?
I think I had a friend recommend this to me who's also a writer. But I've used other stuff in other programs in the past that are similar, but they're more like verbal to visual is kind of more practical, I would say. Whereas like I've used Evernote in the past, which is like almost just like an online version of notes, where you can have like different books and stuff. And then I tried out some programs that were like whiteboard based, like Trello. But for me, I do like everything sort of written down. So I think I'll probably think quite a bit clearer when I have things written down as well. So for me, verbal to visual was kind of the most appealing because I felt like I would almost absorb the information better.
Okay, this is awesome. Thanks. And I've clearly taken my notes in a bad way, so this is well, maybe I need to go and join your course. Okay. Your friend who's a writer recommended verbal to visual. How did that come up?
I've like a writers group, and we meet every week. So you basically just come with like 5 pages of your work, and we talk about it together. So he had seen the script from loads of different stages, and I think he probably saw all my notes and he'd used it.
Okay. And what did he say when he's seen your notes? Is he like, these are terrible, you should go and take this course and turn them into visuals? Or did he say, oh, this is awesome, but you could improve it with visuals? Or like how does the conversation with visuals come up?
He wouldn't have like looked he wouldn't have like asked to look through all of them and stuff. I think you have to bring out printed copies of your work.
Okay.
So if there's 5 people in the group, everyone gets a copy. So you'll often get back 5 pages of notes.
Okay.
So that can be quite a lot. And he probably saw that in addition to my handwritten ones. And yeah, I guess that's probably where the idea came from.
Okay. So Mary and right, I give out my 5 pages, my script, everybody reads it, and I get 5 pages of feed. Like, so do I end up with 25 pages or 10 pages?
You end up with 1 copy of each person.
Okay.
And they've usually like scribbled on it.
Okay, so I've got 25 pages which all have notes stuck in it. Okay.
Yeah.
And what was it about his? Did he put visuals in there instead of written notes, or did he just say like what?
I think I'm not sure he actually had visuals, but he is like similar sort of learning style to me. So he was kind of like, I think you should check this out. It might be helpful. I've used it.
Okay. And did he say that he'd used it for what you were trying to achieve, or did he show you things? Or
I'm pretty sure he said it was for a writing process, but he's also like does similar stuff in terms of directing to me. So he might have used it for directing as well.
Okay. And when was that meeting that you talked to him about that?
That would have been maybe like a month before I signed up, so March.
Okay, cool. And at that time, had you tried Trello? I think you mentioned, and other whiteboards.
I had, yeah. That was purely in like an organizational kind of different projects I'd been on. They wanted to do like a Trello board and stuff like that.
Okay. And that one got that wasn't seen as useful. Why not?
I'd used that one. I think the projects I'd been on, people didn't really. It was sent, and then everyone was like, "Okay, everyone needs to use Trello," and then maybe half of the people used it. So eventually, it kind of just got canned for the project.
Okay.
But I didn't really find it super suited to my kind of style of thinking, if I'm honest.
How do I determine what's suited to my style of thinking? Like what you mentioned it a few times. What's different to verbal to visual versus the Trello approach?
For me, it would just be like stuff written down. So like Evernote, Trello, similar kind of stuff. I'm just kind of looking at these whiteboards on a screen. And if it's on like a huge screen, I could kind of get my head around it more. But often you can only open it on your laptop, and it's kind of, you get lost in it quite quickly. And because it's collaborative, people are adding to it all the time. So it's almost like an overload of information.
Okay, cool. So actually, it seems like these things are making the project or the problem worse. If I'm hearing you, I've got my draft. I've got this stack of notes everywhere. It's really hard to get my head around the whole thing. I dump it into Evernote or I dump it into Trello. Now I can only see a small slice of it rather than maybe spread it all around the room. So it's not helping me much. And then other people can chime in on it, and I don't know, and I'm not tracking it. So this is just compounding the problem.
Pretty much.
About a month before you've gone and bought this, your friends mentioned verbal to visual. I think you said when you took about the decision, you'd looked at other courses.
Yeah.
When did you start? When he mentioned verbal to visual, had you already looked at other courses, or did he mention that and then you went to look for other courses?
I think I looked after he mentioned it, just because I wanted to kind of just do a bit of research on which one would be best, even though he kind of was like, I think this is probably the best one for you. But that's just kind of my approach to things like that. I just like to kind of see what's out there.
Okay. How did you do that search?
I think it was just on Google. Probably would have been like best visual learning courses with an emphasis on note taking.
Okay. And can you remember what you found?
Vaguely, I would say Evernote came up. There was kind of ones for people that it was like language kind of emphasis.
Hang on, Evernote came up. I thought Evernote was like some sort of online whiteboarding note-taking thing, or is it also a course?
I don't know if they have courses, but that was just one that came up for note taking and like combining notes as like almost like a huge digital notebook. I think there might have been one called Heptabase, maybe. Heptabase, which that had courses. I can't really remember the other options, but I can just remember verbal to visual in terms of like the aesthetic layout plus the recommendation of my friend. It just seemed like the best one for me.
Okay. I guess it's a while ago, but this Heptabase, were you just clicking onto Google things and going in and sort of exploring, or were you just kind of looking at the search results and making a decision based on whatever the little snippet thing that pops out?
I would have gone onto the website and just checked it out. Usually I find with most of those things, like as well as the branding, I feel like if they can if they make that sort of really sharp, convincing video in like 2 minutes that explains exactly what it is and why it'd be good for you, is usually like the best kind of well, not the best, but that's why I would be inclined to use it. But I think verbal to visual actually did have one of those as well, which paired with the recommendation would have been like a key reason why I would have selected it.
Okay. And I know it's a while ago, but this video talking to you, imagine I'm playing the role of the video now, speaking to you when you're in that struggling moment, thinking, what am I going to do to organize all this notes? What does the video have to say to get you to say, I like this, I'm going to sign up?
I think it identified the problem within like the first 30 seconds of what I was going through, which was just like, do you have too many notes that you need to distill? This course can help you. And that would have been like part of only part of what it can do. But I saw that, I'm pretty sure that was like within the first like 30 seconds. And I was like, okay, I think this would be good. So yeah, it's not I think that would be the reason.
Okay. You mentioned that obviously your friend recommended it about a month before you signed up. So were you sort of dipping on and off this landing page for about a month, or did you just put it off for about a month? Or what?
I think I was in between a few projects at the time, but I definitely would have spent a few weeks before. Like I think I was looking at a few just to make sure it was the right kind of one.
And what was it? So if you looked at that verbal to visual course, obviously the video talked about your problem. What else was it that it said, or the aesthetic, or the what was it that you were hoping it was going to do for you?
Just allow me to distill everything I had and press forward. But the verbal to visual guy is quite charismatic, and the branding I remember the branding being quite friendly. It's like fairly simple, and it's kind of drawings done with like a Sharpie. And a lot of the videos, he'll do like a locked off aerial kind of thing of a desk, and he's just drawing all the um, images himself with like a Sharpie. It's very simple, and it feels very accessible.
Okay, so it wasn't so much that there was a particular set of lessons or techniques that you were looking to learn. It was more the promise, this will allow me to distill everything that I'm working on. And then as I watch it, it's somebody using a Sharpie, and maybe I'm looking at, was it like one of those overhead cameras,
Yeah.
me, like looking at me scribbling right now? Why is that appealing?
It feels like very, very kind of like down to earth. And it just feels very relatable, but also constructive in a way. Sometimes I feel like courses can be quite this is what you need to do, this is how you're going to get there, whereas this guy was quite like, here's a bunch of lessons, take from it what you can, and whatever works for you is what I want you to get out of it.
Okay. That's an interesting one. So if I'm going to try and replay that, I think I'm hearing you say that in this case here, it wasn't just like some sort of theory set of, here's something, go do it type thing, and this is how you get where you want to get. It's more like, here's a bunch. It's more like a menu of different tips and techniques, and you can just go and get in there, and it's up to you to pick one up and run with it and do what you want.
Yeah, pretty much. And that kind of felt less intimidating, because you kind of go into each lesson sort of being like, oh, well, maybe this one will work for me, maybe it won't. But you're exposing yourself to more and more. So you can pick up all these little bits from different lessons if they work for you. But it kind of felt like you were getting better value for money as well.
Okay, why is that?
Just because he had so many different methods and ideas, and none of them felt like, it didn't feel like overwhelming. It was more just kind of like, here's like we're doing this kind of different method today, and if it works for you, that's great, and if not, then you can use X method next week, or that sort of thing.
Okay, yeah. So it's like I've got a palette of colors or something like that. I can paint my house. If I don't like it, I can paint over it tomorrow with the next color until I find the one that works.
Yeah, for sure.
How does that differ to a course then, which says this is what to do and how to get there? Like, what would be an example of a course that doesn't let you dip in?
Sort of similar. When I was like at uni, a lot of the books that I would read on writing would be like, this is exactly how it has to go, and there's no two ways about it in terms of script structure.
Right. Okay.
And that was always kind of quite, it felt like constraining, but also they didn't really explain why. Like it would just be like, this is what has to happen on this page, and you're kind of left being like, oh, why should that happen on this page? But I found another program. It's a podcast actually called Script Notes. That's like, they explain all of that really clearly, and like now they give like super clear examples. So it probably came from a place of it's almost like they're talking down to you, and it's like, this is how it goes, and there's no way around it. Versus like, a lot more constructive for me is like when people are explaining why and maybe giving you different options.
Okay, so it's more an experience of school or whatever, or where it's my way or the highway, and you just do it. Don't ask. Versus over here, hey, there's all these different ways. Try them, play around with them, see what works for you. And by the way, here's why they work, and let you sort of be in control. Is that right?
Yeah, pretty much. I would respond way better to the second one.
Okay. So eventually, after a month or so, you pull the trigger and you buy it. Why then? Like, why did you suddenly wake up one day, pull your credit card out, and give away $100 of your money?
I think it probably would have been just where I was at in terms of the writing process, but I'd also just looked through everything and felt I got to a stage where I was like, I think verbal to visual is definitely the right one for me. At the time, I'd gone through all the other options, and I was, looking at the sort of building stack of notes, and I was like, okay, I think I want to do this.
Okay. So I guess you going back to where you were at, this kind of, I've got all this stuff I'm trying to wrap my head around it. I'm trying to give it a finish line. What would have happened if you hadn't signed up then? Like, what? I guess, why? Would you? I'm just trying to work out. Usually there's a straw that breaks the camel's back. I'm just trying to work out what it was for you.
It probably just would have been like, I probably would have got there in the end. It probably just would have been more time. I think that's probably the biggest thing that, if I could say the biggest thing that has helped me, is like being able to distill everything in a timely kind of fashion and not get too lost on all the other sort of stuff that's burying you. So now I feel like I can distill things much quicker and implement them into the script, whereas before it might have taken me double the time to get through all those notes.
Okay. So thanks. I think you've got where I was going anyway. So basically, pre having this, I'm stuck in this hell of all these notes or whatever. I can't keep track of it. Post having it, I can distill the notes and then implement them, and I can do this in half the time it would have taken me previously.
Yeah.
Why does that matter? Like, what does that do?
Like, because you want to get it made, and you like, I think everything that I do is time is super important. So if you're working on something for a long time, you want it to be really good because you're spending loads of your time on it. If it's a really short project, it's probably not going to be that good.
Right.
So for me, even though I've been working this for a long time, I'm kind of like, okay, come on, like, we really need to push through this. And if it's not, just to move on to the next thing and just keep going and getting better and better.
Okay, that makes sense. And now you've got this visual capability for the notes. How does that compare to trying to wrap your hands around it before? So you've got the script here. Have you got, like, what have you got now, and is it easier?
Yeah, I would say, like, compared to before, I might have carried around like 50 at any time, like 50 to 100 pages of different notes and mind maps and printouts and scribbles and stuff. Now I kind of try and distill that down to about like a cheat sheet sort of thing of about 3 to 4 pages. If I'm working on like Act 1, Act 2, or Act 3.
Okay.
So yeah, it's probably taken the amount of notes I have down by about 60, 70% at least.
Okay. So I've managed to 60-70% reduce the amount of notes, and I'm carrying less around. So if I'm working on Act 1, previously I've got 50 to 100 pages of notes about Act 1.
Yeah, could do. Yeah.
And now I've got a cheat sheet which is like 3 to 4 pages.
Yeah.
And that is that, like, how do I use these? Like, why am I carrying them around all day?
They would just be like the changes that you're looking to make in the next draft of Act One.
Okay. And having it in 3 to 4 pages makes it quicker and easier to make those changes in the next draft.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Look, I've asked probably the stupidest questions you've ever been asked about your job and script.
No, not at all.
I'm interested, but I'm evidently not the expert. What I missed about this story? Like, have I missed anything important about why you've signed up to this and your experience of using it?
I don't think so, to be honest. I think before I signed up to it, I was kind of a bit skeptical, I guess, just because like you become very set in your ways in terms of notes and stuff like that, and what's worked for you in the past. So I think it was more just kind of being open-minded to change your habits was an important thing. And I think the biggest lesson of going towards discomfort and just like putting yourself in that that place that you don't want to go. That was like a really big thing that I would, if someone was like, why should I do this? I would be like, because it'll teach you good lessons to make yourself uncomfortable.
Cool. And you'd recommend this to other people then?
For sure, yeah. I've recommended it to a bunch of colleagues.
You have?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great. Look, Ben, you've been absolutely excellent. I greatly appreciate your time on the call today. So thank you very much. And yeah, wish you all the best. Hopefully you get that script made and maybe I'll see it on my next trip down to Australia.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Neil.
All right, cheers. Have a good one.
See you later. Bye.
Bye. So that was an interesting one. One of the challenges of doing some of these interviews is if you do end up in talking to somebody about something you know nothing about, like script writing. Now, thank God this year I've read a bunch of books like Don't Save the Cat or something like this, where I've got some idea about what these people do all day, but clearly I had to dive in quite deep there to learn what on earth does his day-to-day life look like? When's he doing this? Why is it important, and why now? Like, why is it 3.5 years ago I can sit there all day, every day, writing these notes, coming up with reams and reams of paper, 50 to 100 pages, carrying them around, and then suddenly this year I can't do that anymore, and I need to go and spend $100. I mean, it's not a lot of money to him by the sounds of things, to go and get access to a course, and it's more the time. He's then going to take 3 months of learning these different techniques. It's interesting to me that he didn't want a structured course. Other people we've interviewed so far in the couple of interviews we've done, they wanted somebody to teach them how to do it, paint by numbers type outcome. In this case, it's like, no, I don't want to be told what to do and how to do it. I want to be given a palette of options to choose from. I want to be able to explore. Maybe I want to learn one day, try and use it the next day, and discard it like a used sock if it doesn't fit properly. So that was an interesting thing. And then what's it helped him to do? It's just, I think if they change their copy to talk about the outcome, assuming other people share this, I've gone from carting around 50 to 100 pages. I'm stuck in a sea of notes. I'm in note hell. I give out 5 notes in a thing that's supposed to help me. I get 25 pages of the same thing back with scribbles on it. How on earth am I supposed to interpret all this information, synthesize it, and then put it back into a draft that improves that draft and moves it one page further down? So all of this stuff I think is really interesting. Now, Yanis, I know you mentioned I don't want to touch sketchnoting or anything like that. I don't know yet whether we haven't interviewed any of your customers, so we don't know if they're buying it to do the same thing or whether they're buying it for some other entirely separate purpose. But this is a very different reason to use visual note-taking than the last two, even though, again, it is related to his work. It's related to a task that he's trying to achieve and a frustration that he's got. So I thought it was really interesting. I'll go off and debrief this now. Hopefully this has helped everybody else who's watching along. Cheers.
Hey, Yanis, I thought I would just record quick notes like this because I can paste them into the analysis that I'm doing. So this one's Ben from earlier on today. This one is more sketchnoting, so it's a lot more probably closer to the things you said you didn't want to do. But, have a look through the video, see what you can learn. In this case, he's a script writer moving from lots and lots of written notes and mind maps, which he's used to this verbal to visual course that I've linked in here. And just to give you a bit of backstory here, so basically he's like a film and TV writer and director, I think. And so he's been doing this for many years, about 30. And for the last 3.5 years, he's been working on this feature-length film that is like his big idea. So he thinks this is a script that's worth pursuing, and he's getting to the point where he wants to put it out there and raise, I think, $1 million to actually make this a reality. What's happening is he's writing every day from 8:30 a.m. until 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And some of that's script writing, some of that's notes on the scripts that he's making. And over time, this is ballooning up and up and up, and he's getting more and more information that he's got to work on. For some reason this year, it's kind of getting to a head. I guess he's done enough revisions now that he wants to make what he says the final push. So this is getting it to the point where it's all sort of drafted properly and ready for launch. And this wasn't an issue previously because the old documents weren't as long. If he was writing a short, he didn't have so many notes. But now this is like, he's carrying around 50 to 100 pages of notes, plus the script that he's got for each act that he's working on. And he's getting overwhelmed with it. And so as he thinks, how am I going to make the final push? But he's also he's buried in notes and ideas, and he can't work out how to organise his thoughts. So anyway, he goes off, he starts looking for other ideas. In this case, he's largely looking at technology, which I found quite interesting. So he's looking at Evernote. If I move these notes on here, is it going to be easier to organise it? Trello, can I put it on these visual Kanban board type things? Heptabase as well, I didn't know about that. He didn't talk much about it, but that also looks like an online whiteboard. He did mention other courses, but he couldn't really remember them. And so if we have a look down here, why do I think, well, what are the main pushes here? So in this case, I've got a huge amount of notes and ideas to organise, and I feel overwhelmed by them. I've got a self-imposed deadline to use the notes, and I feel like I need a new way to organise them. I wonder whether students might also fall into this bucket. I wonder whether somebody's studying for something, just because some of my students are doing this and they've got tons of notes. I do wonder whether others who've got this deadline maybe that they're setting for an exam they want to take may also fall into this. So let's see if we find any in the future interviews. I rely heavily on written notes and mind maps, but they're not helping me. So, they used to be good enough, but now they're not good enough because I've just got too many of them. There's too much information. And I feel like I need a new way to do this. Whatever I'm doing isn't working. Need to make a final push. There's too many written notes. So some of these are a bit duplicative, but I've added them in here. I often do this. I'll create more pushes because we'll probably aggregate these up together in any case. And then down here, why do I want to do this? Well, I've got to distill my thoughts into a more manageable amount of information. I need a range of methods. I don't just want one. I think he talked about others where, at school and things like that, he felt that he was told you must do it this way and just my way or the highway. Here it's more like a palette of colours that he can pick from, and he can try it on. Does it work? Yes, no, throw it away. Make the notes more engaging. I don't know what that really meant. I should have dug into that some more. But I have a feeling this is the written note is, I guess he has to read it, has to try and interpret it, and it's taking more time. Finish the project more quickly, make sure I capture all of the ideas in it. I need to get a grip. So this is like I've lost control of this big project. It's become a monster. I can't hold on to it anymore. He wanted to learn from somebody who's down to earth and relatable, somebody charismatic. Let's add that. And I want to get access to a lot of content and make my way through it at my own time. So in this case, give me this kind of palette of different things that I can choose from. Let me do it at my own time. Habits, could have just carried on doing what he was doing. And then a lot of these anxieties relate to the tools more than anything else, but also to the reason why he gave up this habit. He went and reviewed all of his notes again and thought, oh, what if I highlight these? It's like, is that going to change this, or is it just going to create a massive pile of notes with highlights on? Am I going to be in a better position after doing this, or am I going to end up in the same mess? Is it teaching me a range of methods, or is it just telling me I've got to do it one way? Well, I learn one thing that doesn't work, or a range of methods that I can choose from. and am I going to get lectured at, or is I going to talk something I can actually apply? So there's some of those things. Some of these pieces, just the observation here that he mentioned at the end. There was some content about being uncomfortable. He seemed to find that useful. Some things like this I find in the research, and it might be something nice to add to your students. If we find that your students feel uncomfortable, maybe adding a section of the course that says, hey, you probably feel uncomfortable, don't worry, lean into discomfort, that's when you're going to learn the most, could be enough to change their frame of reference and help them apply what they're learning and get more value from it. It seemed to work for him. And like I said here, competing with tools, much more about. So actually, this was an interesting piece that I found, because this one here, if you look, the other two interviews that I've done so far this week were about taking my ideas and representing them in a way that somebody else can understand, which I think is a lot more like the course that you're putting out there, or at least that's my interpretation of it. Whereas this was much more about, I've got all these ideas, I've got all these notes, these are communicating largely to me so that I can assimilate them into whatever this sort of script is, make sure I get all of these good ideas I've got and plug them in and to make it as good as possible. But I need these notes, these visuals to communicate my ideas back to me in a simple, easy way, not to communicate them out to somebody else. So I wonder whether we'll see that. And actually, I think I might add that in as the so I can right now, so I can express my own ideas back to me in a clearer way or something like that, because I have a feeling that that's a pull which is very different to so the two things are the same. We're distilling an idea and communicating it more clearly, but the so I can, in this case, so I can express it in a way that I can grasp more easily in the future, so I don't have hundreds of notes, versus so I can communicate this more effectively to another person so they don't have to read through 100 pages, which they're never going to read through anyway. Anyway, I'll shut up now. Hopefully this has been useful, and cheers. That to me is a classic example of a context change. Historically, Ben has had no problems dealing with his notes because he's doing short stories. He takes the move up to doing a 90-minute type video or directorship or whatever it is, feature thing. And that requires way more notes than he's ever needed before. And the context is what creates the value. Previously, no value in sketchnoting. I can deal with this. I've got mind maps. I'm okay. Afterwards, one of his friends says, hey, I think you should take a look at this. All of a sudden, he's out there shopping for courses. Changing context changes purchase behavior. And if you understand the context, then you can understand when it makes sense for somebody. It's not even makes sense. They must buy your course or your product because it's the right thing for them. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Cheers.